Alrighty, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan, here with my crewmate and fellow intrepid explorer, Keith. That's Iridian for, what's up, buddy?
Well done, well done.
We're breaking down some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Andy Weir's latest novel, Project Hail Mary. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. We've got another special guest on today's show who will be joining us for Stock Up, Stock Down. And you know what? Why not just more? Because he's a good buddy. So, we got Magic here, the Wizard of Waltham. So, Magic, welcome.
Thanks.
You are also a good buddy.
What an honor it is to be here. It's a shame we aren't in person, otherwise I'd ask you to fist my bump.
Before we get into the categories, let's zoom out with our Petrovoscope and talk about this book at a high level, and I do not mean intellectually. So if you came here for some breakdown of science stuff, you came to the wrong place. Go look at some Carl Sagan videos or something. This is our second foray into Andy Weir's work. We did an early episode of the Buddy Book Club on Artemis. Keith, what was your general feeling towards Artemis?
How can I describe this lightly or in the most best sense here? It was awful, to put it lightly. Too much? Too strong? Not strong enough?
I feel like Artemis was almost like, what's that Star Wars when they get the Death Star plans?
Rogue One?
Yeah, Rogue One. It was like a Rogue One to the rest of the books he's written, where it was more of like a heist. Well, it was a heist book, really. So this one is definitely more sciencey. I never read The Martian. Magic, have you read any other of his work?
I have read The Martian, but I have not read Artemis.
Okay, so we'll get the full spectrum here. We'll get the full thing. I kind of agreed with Keith on Artemis, but if you want our full breakdown, just go download that episode. But we are not talking about Artemis. We're talking about Project Hail Mary. Let's give Andy Weir another shot. Project Hail Mary is a non-fiction tale about a historic 1975 NFL playoff game where Roger Staubach of the Dallas Cowboys fame threw a last-minute miracle touchdown pass to Drew Pearson and took down the Minnesota Vikings. The end. Jokes. But it's actually not too far off. If you substitute Staubach with Ryland Grace, Drew Pearson with Rocky, the Minnesota Vikings with Astrophage, and turn a football into science, it's pretty much the same story.
They used to play on Astrophage or AstroTurf, right? So, yeah, it all works out. It all makes sense.
Checks out.
Yeah. I found it more to be Armageddon, but instead of an asteroid, we're dealing with space algae. And instead of Roughnecks, Bruce Willis, and Benny Affleck, we get a cool middle school teacher playing the role of Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz.
That's pretty good, although Ryland Grace wasn't playing with animal crackers on Rocky's belly.
Are we sure? I don't know. It seemed like there was some of that going on. Let me watch you sleep.
Yeah, he was pro sleep talk, but anti food talk. Before we get into the categories, once again, let's talk about a libation here. Normally, we like to discuss something from the book and enjoy that throughout the pod. I'm taking a page out of Olesia Ilikuni. Fuck, I can't even say her name. Ilikina's, whatever. Her book, and having some vodka. It sounds like I've already had some already, but I swear I haven't. I mean, it's described as a special human liquid for celebration, so seems pretty perfect for the pod. Although, since this is an American holiday today, I'll go with some fine American vodka in the form of Tito's. Thanks, Austin, Texas. Really appreciate that. Keith, question for you. Ryland Grace comes up with all sorts of scientific solutions in this book, but he never unlocks the secret to Kovo, even though he has all the ingredients handy. Why is that? Explain.
That's a great question.
I mean, he kept asking for coffee, and I was like, when is he going to figure out? You just have to pour a little vodka in there, and you get the best of both worlds.
We call that a virgin Kovo. I don't know why you wouldn't, but you don't have vodka in it. It's a virgin Kovo.
So it's not called coffee. It's just called virgin Kovo.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have known that it was already trademarked, and he had no rights to be mentioning that.
Let's jump into some categories. We'll start with favorite scene. Keith, what's your favorite scene from this book?
Mine was the arrival type interaction or scene, I guess, or larger scene with Rocky. I actually really appreciated that. I think you had mentioned to me off record here that you weren't that into it, but I actually thought it was kind of cool understanding the biology, how they saw, quote unquote, how they interacted, and basically how they were different from us. I thought that was really cool. That was really original. It was really well thought out. The whole scene, I don't know if you have seen Arrival, where they are trying to figure out how to communicate with each other. and they eventually kind of cracked the code of how to do that. And it was similar to that, which I thought was good. The only question I had there was, is he playing a flute and like talking back to him, or is he just understanding what he's saying and then speaking English back to him and he understands it back?
Yeah, I was pretty unclear. But I feel like they were just talking English, or then he used his computer as a translator. So I think he was talking into the computer, and the computer was shooting back like Rocky notes, and then Rocky was speaking into it and it was shooting back human notes until Rocky started like understanding English. And then, because I feel like Rocky got that stuff sooner, and then it was just kind of, they were both doing it, but how would Rocky's vocal cords be able to do English? Because even at the end of the book, when he's
teaching the kids, yeah,
it's like goes through a computer system.
I thought he was playing an organ.
Oh yeah, he was actually. Yeah, you're right. He was playing his organ for the kids. So,
Jesus.
I agree with you that I like that scene, I think, the most. It took me a minute to really start enjoying it because just like a lot of this book, it was quite verbose. He was just like, would keep explaining in detail the things that I felt like really didn't need to be explained. So,
I mean, Magic and I both know what verbose means, but I don't think all of our listeners do. So we want to explain that word. We both definitely know what that means, though.
It's just like using a lot of words to say something that could be said in less.
Totally. Knew that.
So I thought that had some aspects of it, but I think in general, those scenes are always fun where it's, you know, them trying to figure it out and like having those eureka moments. Mm-hmm. A lot of running back. And I mean, the guy must have ran miles running down that tunnel there and back, but I enjoyed that as well. I also liked when Ryland wakes up on the Hail Mary. I think there's probably like a theme for me when it comes to this stuff, and it's usually origin stories / like how we get the original setting kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when he wakes up on the ship, it's like, okay, cool, we're on a spaceship. This is going to be fun because, you know, we like sci-fi type stuff. He's looking at the sun. Oh, but it's not our sun. It's like, okay, cool. How did he get there? You know, now you got all these questions. Tubes in some uncomfortable places, just like the Matrix. Mm-hmm. Although instead of down the mouth, it's up your butt mouth. And also he says the butt tube comes right out and like doesn't even hurt. So to all those folks out there putting off colonoscopies, don't sweat it. It's no big deal. Tube slides right out. Go get checked out. Like, could be a stock up. And there's a decent LOL moment in that scene when he sees the other crew and he says like, I don't know who I am or why I'm here, but at least I'm not alone. And they're dead. It's like, oh, right. Oh, fuck. So I think throughout this book, there was some decent, like, funny moments. So I do appreciate that from Andy Weir. Magic, did you have a thing that you liked most about this book?
I did like the one, it's like kind of towards the end when he makes his decision, but it's not abundantly clear what it is right away. It starts out like, it's been 6 weeks since I made my decision. Sorry, Rocky. It's like, oh, so he is going back home? But it's like, no, he's not. He's sent the Beatles home. He's going back to him. So he finally gets to have his choose to be the hero and make his own choice moment. And that resolving in the fact that it's not like the clear endings that we thought, right? It's either go that way and die or go home and live. But there was never like the third option of live but don't go home. So I like that twist at the end. Like, you never really saw that one as a potential option.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in terms of a like story arc, because the whole thing is pretty much how towards the end it reveals that he's actually just a coward and didn't want to go on this trip, didn't want to save humanity, wanted to save himself kind of thing. And in order to resolve that, to have him self-sacrifice in some way to go save Rocky and his people, you know, I found that to be a good use of the story itself. Although I was kind of hoping that he just like wouldn't find Rocky and would just die in space at the end. Okay, let's jump into some stock up, stock down. Stock up, Keith, what do you got?
Middle school teachers, stock up.
Okay, go on.
So, I mean, he was a middle school teacher, obviously, before. And it's not stock up because, you know, they chose a disgruntled scientist turned middle school teacher to be the only person to say astrophage for some reason. Not because of that. Not because the impassioned speech he gave to Dr. Strott, who constantly shows that she's like this rigid, I don't give a shit about emotions or anything. But somehow this one speech that he gave in order to continue studying astrophage that won her over somehow. It wasn't that. And it wasn't the fact that they let him teach NASA scientists. Oh, am I qualified for this? Yeah, I'm qualified. I'm a teacher to teach the smartest NASA scientists. It wasn't any of those things. Those all make sense. Those all make perfect sense. What the stock up is for is somehow this cool teacher is quizzing his class on not just astronomy rather, not just geology, not just physics, biology also. All four of those things, when he's doing the pop quizzes, he's testing them on all these different sorts of science. So I don't know what classes you guys have taken in science before, but I don't know any other class where they actually teach you all those things all at once and quiz you on all of them all at once. I don't know if I explained that well, but stock up for middle school teachers.
I mean, I also felt like his kids were unnaturally enthusiastic and intelligent because it was like, all right, who wants to calculate the radius of Saturn? Everyone's like, ooh, I do. Like,
but he was doing that, and then he would be like, what are the 4 types of rock? And then also, what is the power plant source in the human body? It's like, how are these kids knowing all these things? No one teaches us like that.
Maybe they just don't have the curriculum standards that we have now. Like, week 3, you got to be teaching about cell structure. And then week 4, I teach biology, I teach space science, I teach physics. He teaches it all. He's a one-man show. Magic, do you have a stock up?
I do. It's none other than Microsoft Excel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
You think it's just your handle a couple of numbers, maybe a couple of VLOOKUPs here and there? No, it can do that, but it can also serve as a database for an alien language translator.
Was he using Excel?
Yeah.
He said he was using Excel.
I don't know if he had the 1997 or 2003 version.
Yeah. Oh, you made a couple of pivot tables, I'm sure, so that solves it.
I also love how, in interviews and whatnot, I use Excel a decent amount at work, and it's just funny how in interviews and whatnot, people are just like, oh, so can you do pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, macros? And the answer is always yes. No one has ever said no to me in an interview. And the first 2 or whatever, but I don't know how to build a macro. I'm a dullard. So
You know how to build a micro, though, so you're good. It's just a little bigger than that. All right, I'll see my way out.
my first stock up is being a regular at a bar/restaurant.
I feel like that's one you've bought in the past before.
I feel like I have too. Yeah, I was wondering that. And I mean, this stock should be on the S&P 500. Like, this should be a top stock because I don't know who wouldn't be buying this. But he does mention at some point he's at his local restaurant that he goes to weekly, and he signals the waiter. The waiter doesn't even come over, just gives him a tacit nod. Shout out to Wordle last night.
Oh, spoiler.
The waiter knows that he wants a ribeye, medium, mashed taters, and a pint of Guinness. That's just great. If you take a date there and she orders whatever she wants, and he looks at you, he's like, the regular Mr. Grace? It's like, yes. It's like, oh, very nice. Might even bring in a moose-bouche or something on the house. We'd appreciate that. But I do have a question for the both of you. If you had your own local haunt, or maybe you do, what would be your order that they would just assume you're getting?
Well, I go to a place called Submarina, which is like a much, much better version of Subway out here. I go there, and the girl behind the counter is like, oh, club sandwich today? I'm like, yep. So I do always appreciate that very much. Not the same, it's not as cool as the bar. Anytime I walk in there with someone else, people are like, oh, nice, man. I'm like, yeah.
You take a girl there and she's like, oh, A, awesome, thanks for taking me to Submarina. And then B,
it's a high-class establishment, sir.
So she's all hot and bothered because the lady behind the counter knows that you want a club sandwich, like the woman wearing a hairnet and plastic gloves. It's like, ooh, wow.
They're all hot and bothered already, but once I pull out the rewards card, shit gets real.
Magic, do you have a go-to order?
This is going to come as quite a shock to you, but mine would be a plate of nachos.
By plate of nachos, you mean chips and cheese, right?
Of course. Well, you have to get the toppings on the side because it's a well-known fact that if you get them on the side, you get more of them.
Oh,
it has nothing to do with what's on top of it and if people don't like it or not. It's that you get more toppings when you order it on the side.
Nothing beats a perfectly layered plate of nachos, so I don't disagree with you there. I think mine would probably be similar to Ryland's. Like, it's a nice order. I would probably...
That's a very heavy order, though. A steak, mashed potatoes, and a Guinness? I'd be done for 2 days after that.
Well, I'm picturing his place as kind of like a quiet, dark room, lots of leather chairs, and he's getting a real good ribeye. I'd probably get the ribeye medium rare, I think that's or rare. You don't really get a medium ribeye in my opinion. But mashed taters, pint of Guinness, delightful. Maybe a sidecar of a whiskey, even though I'm not a whiskey drinker. It just seems like the manly thing to do. Okay, Keith, what else do you have for stock up?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what you were just talking about, but it's being humble, stock up. So when you look at someone's resume, when you talk about that, it's always the opposite of that, where you're basically amplifying what your actual skills are. But in this book, there's a very kind of an obvious trend that continued to happen where they'd introduce some sort of character, whether it was the French climatologist or the Thai land scientist or the person in prison or all these astronauts or the Russian or even Rocky. And every single time they're like, this guy's the most amazing person ever. And they're like talking about their achievements and the person would like blush. Oh, I can't talk about that. I'm so smart, but I'm the most humble. No, that's not the real world. This would never happen. People don't get to these highest levels without actually touting their own success, especially in science where you could be the smartest scientist in the world, but if you don't have research papers with your name on them or proven out these things, you're not the person that's getting the credit for this stuff. So being humble, stock up, because it seems that it works, but I disagree with it.
I think that makes sense. Elon Musk, no ego whatsoever. Magic, what else do you have for stock up?
Yeah, I got one more, and that's it's aliens.
Oh,
how long has it been, or how is it our natural thought to hear alien and think, okay, they want to destroy Earth or destroy humans?
Yeah.
So that was a buy low period, and now after this, it's got to be on the way up, right? Making first contact, helping us solve our biggest problem.
Yeah, you're like buying shark stock after watching Jaws.
Exactly. What's the key of stocks? Buy low, baby.
My next stock up was space food. Did you guys ever go to the Science Museum and get space food?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Like Tang?
No.
It's like the freeze dried stuff.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, freeze dried ice cream was phenomenal. Like it had the chocolate, the Neapolitan, like chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
Like that's where you draw the line, though.
Yeah, that was it. They had like, I feel like mac and cheese or something like that, and it was just like gross freeze dried stuff. And obviously, there's been leaps and bounds on the International Space Station, but I feel like stock is still pretty low on space food. And this guy's getting he's getting burritos, and you just say coffee, and someone gives you coffee. I mean, even early on, before he can have solid foods, like day 4, meal 2 was a tube of food. And he said it was beef flavored and the food was getting chunkier. I mean, I know you wanted to do, Keith, a crossover of, food stuff in the books we read, but I feel like I could make a pretty good tube of food that was beef flavored. Like just get straight gravy, basically, right? Isn't that what it is? It's delicious. Like it's got all the things you need. It's got fat. It's got protein. I mean, it's calorically dense. And it's delicious. Like he's just getting gravy tubes when he lands, or when he's like gets out of his coma. I'd be super down, butt tube and all. I'd be like, yeah, give me the butt tube if I get tubes of gravy. So stock up on space food. Got a few quick ones. Watching your friends sleep, that stock is a penny stock right now. So, but this book pretty clearly states that one, if you watch your friends sleep and they for some reason have some sort of brain aneurysm, like you're there, so it's chill, it's not creepy whatsoever. And then additionally, they can watch you sleep, and I guess that makes you go to sleep easier. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm gonna see if the old lady friend will just sit in a chair and watch me sleep tonight, and we'll see how that works out. Additionally, stock up tape measures. As someone who's recently moved, I found that tape measures, although I don't use them very often, are quite useful. They're compact. You can play all sorts of games. Kids don't need toys. Just give them a tape measure. I mean, Rocky loves it. He pulls the tape out as far as he can go and lets both ends go and just has fun with that. I mean, it's probably better in 0G where it's just spinning, but I worked some construction in my early life, and tape measures were a big source of entertainment. Have you guys played any tape measure games? And I'm not thinking about the dirty things that you're probably thinking about.
I was like, what do you mean? Like pull it out, measure it, and then leave it around the apartment for someone to find?
Yeah, what games are we talking about here?
You just put a mark on it at like 8.2 inches.
Exactly.
And you just say like,
And that's how far it can go in, is that what you're saying? Or
No, well, we used to play what I always found to be a very enjoyable game, and it takes quite amount of skill to it, is you get the tape measure and you try to throw it out, like throw the tape out from the holder as far as it can go, like as far as you can let it shoot out. And then the real part of the game is trying to not let the tape measure break. You know how it's like a slap bracelet almost?
Yeah.
So it's not how far you can throw it out, it's how far you can throw it out without it breaking. So you really kind of almost have to have like soft hands as you like lay the tape measure down, because it, you know, once it gets out far, the tip starts bending down. It's like fishing almost. But so I don't know. We play that game a lot. You should try it. Those at home.
You throw the thing out there, you let it extend, you make it as stiff as you possibly can, and it gets how many inches did you say?
I was doing feet. You know, these were.
Oh wow, Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
All right,
And we're
must
talking
be nice.
imperial units
Really
here.
nice.
Yeah.
My last stock up was human meat consumption. I feel like we've talked about eating human meat at some point on the podcast before. At the end, you know, that's what Ryland's eating. He's just eating me burgers. So I have two questions. One, is it better because it's lab grown? And two, is it better because he's eating his own meat? And I figure, I mean, you can answer, but I figure the answer is yes to both. Like, none of us are going to be here and say, no, it's probably better if he like brutally murders someone and then cooks their, you know, their glutes over a stove. But I feel like if you're eating lab-grown meat and it's your own cells, what's the problem? I'm not going to yuck someone's yum. Thoughts? We're already making lab-grown chicken meat and lab-grown beef, so what's the problem with a little taste of the human flesh? Man flesh.
I think we're all on board there. I mean,
Okay,
Magic's,
cool.
Magic's nodding his head over there for sure.
So I've convinced you guys to buy the stock. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Impossible Foods and see if they can start growing human meat. Let's jump into stock down. What do we have for stock down, Keith?
Human interaction, stock down.
Oh, there goes a human meat. It was like, well, we
Oh,
just discussed that.
no. So the whole kind of book hinges on the fact that they need to put people in comas for 4 years, which 4 years is really not that long of a time.
Yeah.
Especially for a scientist. Instead of letting these scientists, you know, drive the ship, maybe avoid some asteroid fields, you know, and have probably the best experience of any scientist will ever get, experiencing outer space in a new galaxy or region no other scientists have ever seen. You can conduct studies while you're doing it. You can do so much stuff while they're traveling. And it's only 4 years. It's not like 40 years, right? Where you'd be like, well, this is going to be mind-numbing. But instead, they were like, all right, we're just going to put these people in comas because we are nervous that they might like fight with each other, which is crazy to me. And that's the whole reason why they only can choose 1 in 7,000 have this gene that they have, which, by the way, only has a 33% survivability rate. So we just killed 2 people over 4 years of experiencing the best space travel of all time. Like, what are we doing here? Like, human interaction, way down. Stop.
It's a decent point because, yes, you could have just chosen all the best scientists without having to do this coma thing. And on top of that, even if it's like, well, someone might go a little crazy and murder the other 2 people, that's pretty much what happened anyways. You know, he didn't go crazy, but the other 2 people got murdered, you know? So yeah, I'm with you there. I feel like the only factor that was a difference maker was that the food consumption issues. You know, they'd have to like drink coma slurry or whatever that is, which sounds like a drink you'd get in like New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
I think, I mean, they still packed food for them to eat for the 4 years, right? So couldn't you just then make it better food?
I think they just didn't have enough. I don't know.
Oh, you're saying that like coma slurry takes up less space, so they were able to eat that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's just like the essential nutrients and proteins and stuff, but not for flavor.
But I still agree with you. I mean, for every stock you buy or sell, there's going to be dissenting opinions. I still agree with you, though, that human interaction, I'm selling it. I don't want any of it. Magic, what'd you have for stock?
Yeah, I mean, mine kind of piggybacks right off of that. And it's like the world science organizations. I mean, we have this problem, and the best that we can come up with is to kill 2 of our 3 people from this coma thing, and a problem that'll take 30 years to solve. Like, that's the best we can do here. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not convinced on that.
Gotta trust the Thai companies to come up with some crazy coma thing. And also, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the cancer treatment stuff is horrible, and you definitely would just, you know, there's lots of things in life that you just want to be like, hey, put me asleep, and when it's all over with, you know, wake me up. But I feel like that's a weird impetus to like create this coma science thing, drug, you know? All right, my stock down, Imperial units. I mean, this guy, fucking Andy Weir, takes an absolute hatchet to Imperial units and vis-a-vis America. At one point, he's like, the tunnel is 20 feet long or 7 meters. And then he's like, oh my God, being an American sucks. You have to use feet instead of meters. Buddy, what is a meter? I sure know what a foot is. I have one. You know, I can judge what a foot is. I can say, here, this is a foot. That's how long a foot is. Everyone has a foot. You know how long a foot is. Who has a meter? Nobody. Get over it. Okay? Ooh, wow. We have a metric tape measure on board. Thank God. He's like, oh, praise the heavens. This tape measure is in metric units. I'm saved. Get over it. All right? Every single opportunity he has to shit on imperial units, he does so, which just makes the book like 40 pages longer because he uses it all the time. And trust me, I get it. Metric units are fine. I get it. They're in blocks of 10. It makes sense. But then he goes on to say, oh, why do we use blocks of 10? It's so dumb. We only have 10 fingers. So why do we do that? Why don't we use 6? It's like, you're hurting your own argument. None of it makes any sense, okay? It's all made up. So don't worry about it. Use feet, use arms, fucking use fathoms, whatever you want. Just get over it.
To piggyback off what you just said there, D-Man, for all of our listeners out there, there's now a new buddybookclub.com blog out there. I wrote on, this is before I read this book, on, why these clocks have 60 seconds and 60 minutes and 24 hours. I created a new metric clock system, if you want to read the article.
No way. Did you really write that?
Yeah, that's right. Anyways.
Did you start doing drugs or something?
Yeah, I had a dream about it, and so I wrote an article on it. So why not? Fuck it. Anyways, it makes it so we have a 3-hour workday, which equates to 8 hours, but we just change everything, so it makes it easier. Also, which I found out by doing my research.
Workday? What are you talking about?
Yeah, we make the day 10 hours long, which involves 100 seconds, 100 minutes.
Oh, you're saying you want to change.
Yeah, that's right.
Go to buddybookclub.com and read it, because I sure will after this. I'm very confused and also enlightened at the same time. Kid had a Kovo and went nuts.
But the one key takeaway here is that, to your point, you said, like, what is a meter? Turns out the science community changes what those things are on a decent basis. They actually just changed what a kilogram is.
What?
No way.
I references it in the article. They had a conference in 2019 where they changed 3 of the key metric system units, or like sizes. I'm sure it's by like a marginal amount, but it's still, they're changing it.
Oh my God. So this is like, when they extend the NFL season by 2 games or whatever. It's like, okay, all the previous historical stuff are now obsolete, Like when we read that book, The Body, it was like, how long, like in terms of distance, can a man orgasm? And it was like 18 inches. Now we have to just throw that out because, it's all changed,
It's the most random callback. What? Yeah, okay, no. But yeah, anyways, but I agree, D-Man. We're on the same page, I think. Wait, no, actually, no, I don't agree. I'm with Andy Weir in this one.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right.
Okay. Well, all I know is the record books are open, so start
let them fly.
Yeah, let them fly. Magic, what'd you ever stock down?
I also had Common Sense as a stock down. I mean, how many problems did we run into that could have just been avoided by using common sense? Like you're saying that we could have shortened the book by 60 pages from some of this stuff. Common Sense could have shortened this book by 100 pages too.
Give us an anecdote here.
In the scene where he needs to for some reason I need to send him what my ship is made out of. So he needs to get into his suit, go out, knock off a piece of his hull. Like, in what world is that a good idea? It's like you don't have something inside the ship that is pretty close to what the outside is made of. Or in the beginning when he's like, oh, I should have known that when I go into 0 Gs, I'm going to throw up and things are going to fly off the wall, but I didn't tape anything down. Oops, I'm a dummy.
That was a big point for me. I was like, wait, what? How did you not realize that? And the hull thing would be hilarious if he was like, okay, I just got to go outside and like chip a piece of my hull. Chips a piece off. It's like, the end. He died. He died. Humanity died because you wanted to throw a chunk of your hull to a fucking ET waving at you or Wally waving at you from Blip Bay.
I had an Earth-specific scientist down as well, Magic, for stock down. How about the time where they are like, let's try exploding this thing, and they measured it wrong.
Yeah.
And so they set up like a nuclear bomb. Or the fact that we're allowing these scientists to just melt polar caps and fuck around in the Sahara Desert and just do all this shit. We have 26 years to live, and we're just like, we might end the Earth here doing these random experiments, but fuck it, let's try them out. Wouldn't you rather have a good 30 years of life remaining rather than ending the world potentially then?
Philosophical question.
Either way, Earth scientists sucked. Rocky was the fucking man. Rocky was awesome. Earth scientists were terrible.
Okay. My stock down, washing your clothes. It turns out it's not necessary. You just soak your clothes in water and toss it in the freezer and it kills all the germs. So why are we so focused on washing clothes? And currently my washing machine is broken. So I think I'll just be freezing. Actually, I had a friend of a friend who was very serious about his jeans. Just like, loved his specific pairs of jeans, but hated washing them because they shrink, they get uncomfortable the first couple of wears. And so he actually told me years ago, which I thought was blasphemous until I read this book, that he just freezes his jeans and then that's it. He's like, I've never washed these jeans. It's my favorite pair of jeans. I've owned them for like 5 years. I've never washed them. I just freeze them and then let them thaw and then put them on. So I also had a friend who in the summertime freezes his clothes before he gets in the shower and then puts them on afterwards, and I thought that was maybe the smartest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. I don't get the whole jean thing because the worst part about jeans is breaking them in. You're literally stiffening them. You're doing the exact opposite of what...
Yeah, well, they thaw out. After they thaw out, then, you hang them to dry and then they thaw out and you're good to go. But when you wash them and they like shrink up a little bit and get tight, like the fibers get tight, so you just
what you should be doing is buying just straight denim. I had a long conversation with someone at work that does this. They just buy straight denim and denim jeans. Yeah, and then he never washes them, he says.
Oh, wait, what do you mean, denim jeans or just like denim fabric and just wear them
like they're like 100%. I don't know. I forget really what the conversation did, but he just kept on saying denim, and I was like, totally, I'm in.
Yeah, aren't jeans just denim? It's like cotton.
Yeah.
Maybe?
No, it's all denim, straight denim.
Either way, don't wash your clothes. Stock down. Don't do it. Maytag and Whirlpool are going to be hitting us up another time, telling us to take this down, and we won't fucking do it. Magic, did you do any other stock downs?
No, that was my two.
Keith?
All right, last one from me. And you guys, I want someone to correct me on this, but relativity stock down. So I don't really know a lot about science, but the whole book
it's
is
all
based...
relative.
Yeah. Come on.
Thank you. The whole book is based around the idea that Earth's going to die in 30 years. It takes him 4 years, theoretically, flying out there. 4 years equals 13 years, whatever the math is on that, right? Rocky says he has 72 years before his planet dies. But Rocky, when he says that, didn't know that there is such thing as relativity. That's why his ship has so much more fuel than he needed. And then Rocky had been there, right, in that new planet for like 40 years. And so he doesn't know that the relativity exists. We know that 4 years equals 13 years on Earth. This system Rocky's system is further away than Earth is to the system they're in. So shouldn't, like, by the time, if Rocky actually did this calculation of it, he should be his planet should be destroyed. Like, it should be like 150 years already in his planet.
Yeah, see, the problem is with your science is you forgot to carry the one. So if you carry the one, it all adds up. It's pretty basic.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
And in the time you were talking, they changed the units of measurement too. So
yeah.
Shit. Yeah. Well, I mean, a year would be 100 days in my calendar as well, so we're good there.
Truthfully, listening to what you just said sounded like exactly something I read in that book, and I wanted to fall
You
asleep.
zoned out?
Yeah, I was out. I was so out.
That was good math by me. I kept on waiting for the time where he'd be like, oh, Rocky, sorry, you didn't realize about relativity. Your fucking planet's done.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen.
Come back to Earth with me, bro. I didn't understand a word that came out of your mouth, and you have made the entire world dumber. But
I'm cutting that whole thing.
But can't wait to read your blog post.
my last stock down was Kazakhstan. I mean, not since Borat has a noble country been so shamed. It's where they built the launch site, which they chose because, and I quote, people generally don't build launch facilities next to anything important. Yikes. There are people there, and it's also described as flat and featureless. So the people of Kazakhstan, I apologize on behalf of Andy Weir and the world for this. You are wonderful people, and if I had to build the launch facility, I would spare that for you because, there are lots of wonderful things that come out of Kazakhstan. I can't name any of them, though.
Audit here. In the Gray Man episode, you purchased stocks in Kazakhstan because the Kazakhs are known for being very good at shooting guns.
Yes.
So which one is it, kid?
So I guess it should have been stock up for me. I mean, it's the stock itself is down in this example, which means that I'm purchasing more. and I'm gonna.
It's undervalued.
Yes, exactly. It's an undervalued stock right now.
Although we still weren't, I'm still not convinced that it wasn't Cossack, Cossack, but that's neither here nor there.
Let's jump into quick pick your character. Did you have a favorite character in this one, Keith?
Ava Strat, Dr. Strat.
Really?
No nonsense, to the point. Had the best line in the book, which was when she's talking to Ryland when he's being a huge bitch. She says, "Listen, Ryland, I like you. I just don't respect you," which was a great line. I've never heard it that way. So
I did highlight that in my book too. I found that to be quite enjoyable. I'm with you, although she seems like a tough lay.
Lay?
Tough lay. A little starfish vibe. Mine would be either Dimitri.
Like total opposite. For how controlling she is, you'd be the starfish.
Yeah, seriously.
Shags like a minx. Okay.
She would probably be correcting you multiple times, which be tough. But
like that is not the most efficient way to procreate.
Yeah.
I'm going with either Dimitri or Ilyankina. Basically the Russians. Dimitri likes to blow things up. He's a lighthearted guy. When they're doing the tests, it's not his fault that other test fucked up. That's the other two buffoons. But when that thing blows up, he's like, what happens if Ryland's like, whoa, what happens if this thing kills us and, you fucked up the calculations? He's like, well, you're drinking the afterlife, right? It's like, oh, cool. Like, very chill. And Ilyankina, she just hangs out at the officer's bar drinking unstilled vodka all the time. If I was going to have a crewmate, that's who I want. She's pretty much like a saner version of the crazy Russian guy from the aforementioned Armageddon. So
there you go.
I'm down.
She was the one who chose heroin, right, as her way to go?
Yes, she did.
You think that was real, or she just wanted to have some on board?
Yeah. She needed her fix.
Yeah, exactly. She was like, maybe some heroin, but keep it in different vials so I can have a little taste here. Actually, you know what? I should probably test that out now just to make sure it's good.
Heroin?
No, her, before they went on the mission. She's like, you know what? Just give me some of that right now. Let's get into some love-hate.
Oh, did Magic have a favorite character?
Oh, did you? Sorry, I apologize.
I mean, yeah, I it's the obvious answer, but I thought Rocky was the fucking star of the show.
Rocky's he just seems like just a good-hearted guy. Love. Keith, what'd you love?
I already went into it a little bit, but the alien scenes, I liked Rocky a lot. I thought
Rocky loves Emily. Rocky loves Emily.
I mean, it's super original to come up with new biology for a species. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I loved the whole "who am I" aspect of the story, and I liked how you figure it out with him. It seemed like a fun way for that journey to go, and made sense why they had the two timelines, which I thought the two timelines kept things kind of fresh and got you out of him just solving things on the spaceship the whole time, which I feel like I only saw the Martian movie, so Magic, maybe you can tell me, but I feel like that was kind of the whole thing of the Martian, was solving one problem after another, and there really wasn't, an other side of the story. So I was a big fan of that, and I also enjoyed when he was trying to figure himself out at the beginning. He was like, so I'm a single man in my 30s who lives alone in a small apartment. I don't have any kids, but I like kids a lot. I do not like where this is going. And he was like, oh, I'm a teacher of few, thank God. And I just thought it'd be so funny if it was like he realized he was a pedophile. It's like, oh my God, I'm a pedophile. I'm a horrible fucking person. Magic, what'd you have for love? What'd you love about this book?
I love the relationship between Ryland and Rocky.
That's my next one.
Oh, adorable. I think you were kind of what you're saying too, the science aspect of it, if that was what the whole thing was, which was basically what the Martian was. I mean, this is a little more complex and relative because it's space, and the Martian was kind of more things that were how do you grow something? Well, you need this. And this was more interstellar stuff, which is a little less intuitive. But the relationship on this actually not only was my favorite part about it, but it also changed what I said to you guys before we finished reading the book and my how do you do this as an audiobook point.
Oh.
When the first half of the book, it's how do you do this as an audiobook? I mean, you don't reread the science parts trying to understand things and go back and this and that. But then when you get the conversations between him and Rocky, hearing that in an audiobook, I think would be a blast to kind of hear how that's portrayed.
So you didn't hear that, right? You read it? I read it too.
I read it all, but I know Keith did audiobook, so I was very curious how this played out.
I'm
as
also
an
curious too,
audiobook.
like, how did they do Rocky? How did they do his voice?
Yeah, how did they show it in the book? Because basically in the audiobook, anytime Rocky talked, it was basically like a synthesizer would talk when
So it'd
he
be
talked.
like, I love you, Ryland.
Yeah, that's why I kept on imagining him as a robot half the time.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
but what does it look like in the book? Does it have like notes?
In the books, it's just like the musical notes.
When he did like musical note stuff, it'd be like,
You have no idea what it's saying until like the next
Gotcha.
paragraph.
Yeah, it would do the same thing. It would sound like a synthesizer, but just notes initially, and then when he started to understand what he was saying, it'd be a synthesizer with him talking over it.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad I didn't do the audiobook.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't groundbreaking.
The way I pictured it sounding was cheery and upbeat music, not just like a synthesized monotone kind of thing.
It starts playing like Hell's Bells. You're like, oh, is that what he was saying? Like,
yeah, like I don't want like Stephen Hawking in a robot with him, you know?
Yeah, I pictured him sounding like R2D2.
Yeah, like,
yeah. All right.
like fist my bump.
excite. That's what it sounded like all the time.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, like I said, my next, because I'll just jump into mine before asking you, Keith. My next love was the relationship between the two, because it's one of the real parts of the book that gave me a genuine emotional response. There was a couple times that I actually was like, ooh, not like choked up, but close. He realized like Rocky has all the, Rocky's like, oh, I have a ton of astrophage, like I can get you home. He's like, I'm happy, you no die. Let's save planets. And you will miss me? Question. I will miss you. You are friend. And then at the end when he decides to go and get him, it's like, you save me. I love that stuff. And obviously we talked about the fist bump, enough. But although this is probably the biggest stick in my craw thing of the whole book, this could have gone into stock down, but what the fuck was Ryland doing when he thought Rocky was dead / dying? At one point he's like, oh, Rocky still hasn't moved. No surprise there. It's like, yeah, because you're letting him die. Of course he hasn't moved because you haven't done anything. And then there's a leak in the hull, which Ryland says, it's so small, it would take weeks to be a problem, but there's no reason to just let it leak. It's like, yes, there is a reason, you twit. Your homeboy that just saved your life is presumably slowly dying 15 feet away from you. Rocky is dying and you're just doing fucking spring cleaning. Like, get your ass in gear and work out a solution.
Common sense. Come on.
It made no sense. And granted, I know that like what he ends up coming up with potentially could have hurt Rocky and he really just needed to sit there. But as a human, you're never assuming that like, oh, this person's mortally injured. If I just sit and watch, like maybe they'll heal.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. So for him to just be like, nah, I'm going to go organize the cargo room. I'm going to like fix this tiny leak and just like hope something happens. It's like, he just saved your life. This is your friend. And you're just going to like watch his dead body. It blew my gourd. I was fucking pissed.
Sounds like it's on the hate section for you, but well, the problem I had with it was that he's like, I can't believe Rocky went and did this and saved my life to like and risk this whole thing, and then he does the exact same thing to him to save his life. I'm like, so you're doing the exact same thing you said that Rocky shouldn't have done, because he almost kills himself, right? Trying to like move him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just grabs him with his bare hands.
Yeah, common sense for the win.
Yeah.
Keith, what else for love?
But I did also like the memory loss aspect. I do like having like when it's a mystery and you're kind of trying to solve it with them. I did think they kind of went a little too quickly into actually everything you need to know. Like the only big reveal and the only real reason for the flashbacks after the first couple was the cowardly thing. Other than that, I don't think. And like we were like, okay, so how did he get on the ship? Like that's the only really mystery that kind of was resolved. So I didn't really love the flashbacks once we got into the middle of it. And it was just like useless ones. I have one in my hate that I think was the worst flashback ever, which I'll get to. But aliens being good guys, I like that. And I really like Rocky in general.
Hate. Keith, what did you hate? Tell us.
I mean, the biggest thing, we've talked about this a lot on the pod, but is I like to think of a book as a movie in my head. When you're in it, you don't realize you're reading a book or listening to a book in my case. You're just in the story. This, when you're doing math equations or comparing, I don't even know what the units they were using. They're kind of using units I've never even heard of, and being like, that's like 4 billion
megajoules.
Yeah, like I'm like, okay. All it does is just take you completely to the book. Well, I can't picture this in my head. I have no idea why this is impressive. You could just say it's fucking a ton of energy, and that would be enough for me.
It's a
like,
fuck
but
ton
instead,
of energy.
he explains like 30 different ways of how much energy it is, and I'm like, okay, like this is not really helping me. I now just realize I'm reading a science not like textbook. It's that really just took me out of the book multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump into mine because it was the same thing. It was really just there's too much science for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times when I felt like I wasn't the target audience for this book, even though it's like, heavily published and it's very popular, and Andy Weir did The Martian, and I was like, oh, am I just too dumb for this? And the answer is probably yes. The answer is definitely yes. But it was just too much of a high level science that isn't really explained. That's the other thing. It's like, if you're gonna do that, then almost like explain it more. It was just a bit much. I needed an ELI 5, and that's explained like I'm 5 for the non-Reddit folks out there. What they don't have in this book, obviously, because he's supposed to be alone out there with Rocky, is they don't have the classic dumb character who the smart character explains things to in a very simple way. So, like, the smart character says something crazy. It's like, okay, well, we're not all Mensa members, so what does that mean? Check out this quote. For the reaction to work, the protons need to collide with a higher kinetic energy than the mass energy of two neutrinos. If you work backwards from the mass of a neutrino, you know the velocity of these protons have to collide at. And when you know the velocity of a particle in an object, you know its temperature. What? Like, what? And I'm just not, this isn't the kind of book like Dune where I can read a page and be like, I didn't understand anything, and go back and be like, oh, now I get it. It's like I could read that 100 times and still have no idea. The average rectal temperature of a healthy goat, it's 103.4 degrees, by the way. It's like, yeah, okay, now I understand. That's the sort of interesting science I'm looking for. Now you told us rectal temperature of a goat, no idea. Okay, here it is. It's 103 degrees. It's like, cool, I get it. Let's move on. Perfect. Give me the more of that kind of science, less of the neutrino science.
The story was cool enough by itself, too. So it'd be like seeing Star Wars and them just explaining the science of a lightsaber for 50% of the book. You'd be like, okay, we don't care, Like, the cool part is the actual story, not the science.
Yeah,
as much.
Exactly. In Star Wars, he does the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, and 12 parsecs isn't even like a measurement of time. It's a measurement of distance, not time. So it's like, but I didn't need to know that. I don't care. It's just like, oh, cool. He did it in 12 parsecs. Let's move on. Whatever.
Yeah. It's made up science about something that's made up. That's something that's made up. So it's like, this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. It could have been a lot shorter.
I think it's hard to go through it and realize you don't need to understand the science of it to get the whole point of the book, right? The first half of the book, it's like all about the science, and it's like, do I need to be understanding what this is? But then when you get to like the real actual plot of the book, it's like, okay, I could have just skimmed over the science parts and still gotten the same output of this. And that's why I think this would work well as a movie.
I totally agree with you. And the problem with all the science stuff is it lends you, especially being a reader or, like reading it, to like start skipping things. Because I actually found towards the end of the book that if you just kind of like breezed through the stuff until you found an exclamation point, that was like when actually important stuff would happen. So I was like, oh, I'll read that part. And if I was listening to it in an audiobook, I would be zoned out. I would be like washing the dishes and be like, well, what the fuck just happened in that book? I have no idea. So
I definitely zoned out a lot. So
Magic, do you have any hates for this one?
It's pretty nitpicky, and I get it kind of goes against the whole point of the story, but the way that they chose Ryland to be the guy to like first study this, like, seemed a little far-fetched. Like, you get this 8th grade teacher who's not respected in the science community, and suddenly he's your guy.
The other thing too is they're like, we can only do one scientist on this, and just only one. And it's like, why? It's like, well, we don't know anything about this, and it might be dangerous. Like, have you ever heard of the Manhattan Project? We put multiple scientists on that, and that was just as dangerous. We didn't know about nuclear energy and shit at the time.
Shout out Werner von Braun.
Right. What if your scientist was one of the 3 people that dies? What then?
Well, yeah, speaking of that, I'm going to get into my next one, which is the Annie Shapiro and Martin Dubois. Like, why are they in the book? Super creepy couple. I mean, I'm all in for open sex talk. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to sex shame or anything like that. But why in front of someone, like you're having a 3-person class, in front of someone, you say, hold on one second. We have 15 minutes after this lesson. Do you want to have sex in the bathroom? And the other guy's like, that sounds very agreeable to me. It's like, just wait until you're done with the lesson and you're in the hallway and you're like, should we go bang in this coat closet? It's just like, yeah, sure. Not a problem.
Like every other person.
With the fate of humanity lingering over
yeah, like
you.
Every other normal God-fearing person. It just makes no sense. And also, if I had my least favorite character, it would probably be the Dubois guy. He has a glass of wine that he lets sit for 10 minutes so it can breathe when they're like waiting for the launch. Imagine this guy at a dinner party. Like, he cracks a bottle of wine. It's like, oh, who wants a glass? And you like go take a sip. It's like, no, wait. Like, wait for the creme. The guy just seemed like a total loser. And then on top of that, they're so dumb that these two people, even though they're like, oh, we're not going to give VD because like we got tested, so like we're good, who are the two scientists on this thing, just decide to do experiments together. And I'm not talking about sexual experimenting. Like, they go to do real experiments together and die together. It's like, you guys are so dumb.
Common fucking sense.
Keith, what else do you hate?
This is similar to the science stuff, but he kept being overly impressed by everything. The world's about to end. They're using every possible resource, and then like at points in the book, they're like, "Oh my god, the NSA is involved in this? The NSA? Do you know how big the NSA?" It's like, yes. What? Why are we impressed by every single thing that comes up?
Yeah.
And the worst of the court session where they go to sue them, it was so fucking bad. The line from Strat is, "You can't do this. We have all these patents, blah, blah, blah." And she says, "Well, you and what army?" "I have the U.S. Army, and that's a damn fine army." I'm like, oh my God. I rolled my eyes so hard when that happened. I was like, Jesus, what are we doing here? That upset me so much. I'm sorry.
You know what? It's better. It was better for me because I pictured the judge as Judge Judy. Like, I pictured it as like a Judge Judy courtroom, you know? So it's like, on one side, we have the U.S. patent trolls, and on the other side, we have Director Strat and the U.S. Army, and Judge Judy's like, I'm not going to listen to this. Respect to Judge Judy. I think she makes like $25 million a year or something. Insane. Good for her. Magic, do you hate anything about this novel, which is Project Hail Mary?
Other than that, not too much. I fully enjoyed it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we use this hate thing because with every yin, there is a yang. There's love and there's hate. We don't actually hate anything. It's such a strong word, especially when the world's going to end, you know? Who can you hate? Make love, not war. I didn't really hate anything else, too, so that's what I got. Except for the Dubois guy. God, I just can't get over him. He's such a fucking twat. Let's get into some listener mail. Keith, do we have any listener mail this week?
First, we have a review. Do you want to read it? I'm not good at reading.
I don't have it, so yeah, you have to read it.
This is a review from one of our recent listeners on Apple. What can I say about the Buddy Book Club, BBC, that hasn't already been said? They're funny, smart. This sounds weird now that I'm reading it. I'm just not going to put this in. All right, yeah. If you guys have funny reviews you want to post that shit on us, we'll be more likely to read them. This one's like almost too self-aggrandizing.
Yeah,
what's the word?
Self-aggrandizing?
Yeah, I don't want to read this.
Well, let's put a caveat to if you have shitty reviews, but like 5 stars, but then write shitty things.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Okay, this PS is good. To all the Germans out there, this spot is spreading like wildfire from the Black Forest to Hamburg. Don't miss out. That works.
I could go for some Black Forest Gato cake and a hamburger. That sounds delicious. Listener mail, what do you got?
You've got mail.
Listener mail from Stefan or Steven. There's 3 ways that each of the astronauts decide to kill themselves. Which of the 3 is the best way to die, and would you pick something different? I believe it was the carbon monoxide poisoning, heroin, and just a straight up gun, I believe. Is that right, D-Man?
No, it was heroin, the gun, and nitrous.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Yep. Thoughts around those?
I'm not sure about like straight nitrogen, but nitrous oxide, right, is like laughing gas. And can't you just die from that too if you OD on that? I mean, I haven't done any studies myself because the NSA might be listening because they don't have anything better to do. But, you know, you can just like take some nitrous oxide and you have a blast, right? Isn't that the thing? Have you guys ever had that?
They even was in like balloons at, what's it called? Like fish concerts and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I've been to a fish concert here and there, you know.
You have first-hand experience then.
That's the stuff that like allegedly tastes like whipped cream, right?
Yeah, it's what's in whipped cream. So if you just
allegedly,
I mean, kids don't keep that nozzle straight up. You know, make sure you put it down. But if you do keep it straight up, it tastes better than whipped cream.
Make sure you're dressed like a golden snitch.
Yeah.
I was at a Staples and I saw a guy in the parking lot snorting
duster
keyboard cleaner.
Oh my god!
Is that something I should have called the cops on? Been like, this dude's about to drive.
Maybe. I mean, there's one of the best and earliest intervention episodes where the girl's addicted to duster, and I feel bad because like this is a human being, but you know, unfortunately, the media and AKA like entertainment television turns into entertainment. But she says, like, makes you feel like you're walking on sunshine. And then someone took that and put it on YouTube as, like, to Walking on Sunshine, the song. So like every time they say the chorus, it's her going, Walking on Sunshine. It's really good. Like that's what the internet was made for, unfortunately. I hope she's doing very well and she's over her Duster addiction. But Duster, unfortunately, wasn't included in these three. So thanks, Stefan, Urkel's alter ego. Appreciate that. I would not go with the gun to the head. That just sounds cold and ties into what like Chow or Chang or whatever his name was, how he wanted to go in his personality. The heroin was confusing to me because like, why would you use heroin and not just morphine, which is like clean heroin, right? I mean, I think I'm not a huge morphine understander, but you just take a huge dose of morphine and you just call it. Like that seems pretty chill, except you do probably like suffocate or something. I think if it was the nitrous oxide thing, which is what I'm thinking of, like laughing gas, and you just like have a good time and then you go to outer space, like in your brain, not like physically, that sounds good to me. I think I'd go with that. I don't have an alternative. Like I wouldn't do anything that I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. Although I do like this question. Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have mixed the two. Oh. So I would have done the heroin first and then turned the nitrogen or whatever it's on, because it sounds like, because you could get fucked up with an overdose on heroin where you're like choking on your own vomit and shit. So I'd rather do that. You kind of go into a nice sleep and then you die in your sleep with the nitrogen. I'm glad we did this uplifting question here. But
actually, that's a good idea. You put the mask on and you get the tank ready. You take the morphine, let's say, and then you open the gas gauge and you just see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what happens. You're going to be done. But Magic, what do you think?
I guess if we're sticking with taking some of this heroin theme here, not a lethal amount, just enough to make things interesting, and then put on the suit and just untether yourself and float away.
Ground control to Major Tom.
The wildest trip you could ever be on, and then that's how you go.
All right, let's tie this thing in with a bow here. Let's cast the movie. Keith, who'd you have for Ryland Grace?
I had Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, that's actually a very good one.
I think he's one of the most underrated actors out there. He can carry a movie.
So
and we should probably preface this movie is about to come out, right?
Sorry, I didn't do my research with this one.
Yeah, so I think it's Ryan Gosling is supposed to be leading it, and it's supposed to be a movie coming out.
Oh,
so.
Okay.
It's just been approved. Like, they haven't cast anyone outside of him yet.
Okay.
But he's, like, put money in to be the main character.
Look at Magic doing the research for the BBC. You love to see that.
Love to see it. I would just run it back with Matt Damon. Like, just continue it from The Martian. Like, he gets back home after The Martian, and it's like, well, we need someone for this other mission, and, like, you had a lot of experience, like, in space doing all this stuff, and he's like, I'm willing to go back. It's like, how about them apples?
Just pump him with a bunch of those drugs to make sure he forgets who he was.
Yeah.
So I would do that. Magic, did you have anyone else for any of this stuff?
Because I knew that Ryan Gosling was in it, I couldn't unsee it. So, and I think it works. He could carry a movie.
Yeah, no. I mean, I enjoyed Ryan Gosling myself, so and he's easy on the eyes. For Strat, I had Eva Green, who was the female lead in Casino Royale. So she's the money in Casino Royale with.
Oh, yeah.
So she's like, I'm the accountant or whatever. I'm in charge of the money, that kind of thing. She just has that badass bitch in a business way vibe to her that I think she could carry this, because you really have to have that with Strat. Did you have anyone else, Keith?
I had Jodie Foster for her.
Oh, maybe a little
callback to Contact.
Yeah, written by Carl Sagan, by the way.
Oh, really?
The book. I mean, the movie. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then for Rocky, I had the Star Wars Rogue One K2SO.
Pardon
unit.
Me?
The robot, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Like the robot that's already in that. I just said Boston Dynamics will create Rocky, so we're good there. Like Boston Dynamics probably has.
I like how we all thought of it as just a robot, not a.
You guys are both wrong.
Okay,
go on.
There's only one choice for Rocky, and you're crazy that you haven't. Neither of you have said this, and it's obviously Andy Serkis.
Oh, that's a great call. Oh my god. So, I mean, this is a tangent and we're already going long, but why not? I finally got the significant other here to jump on board with Lord of the Rings. So we watched Fellowship, and probably spent like 20 minutes beforehand just explaining Andy Serkis and like who he is, how he's like just the most phenomenal like voice and body actor or whatever. And she had no interest in any of it, but this is perfect. Yes, 1,000,000,000% Andy Serkis should do it. He'll do all the sounds too. It'll be phenomenal.
Yeah, you know who'll get involved.
Yeah. So would you recommend the book?
No, yeah, it just wasn't for me. It was just out of the book too much. It was too long. I know it's a very, very popular book, so it's probably against the grain here, but I think the movie would intrigue me, and I would definitely watch that, but just too much science for me.
I think it'd be a good audio book for like going to sleep. Like it would help you.
Jesus, that's like the worst thing you can
help
say.
you sleep. No, it was bad. I wouldn't say it was bad. Like we've read some bad books. I wouldn't say this was bad, but it would not be in like something I would tell someone like, oh, you should read Project Hail Mary. Unless someone was like an astrophysicist, I'd be like, oh, you should check this out. But I think I agree with you that I think the movie could be promising. Magic, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely would recommend it. I think if you go in with the understanding that the science isn't really the main point of the whole story, I think that would make it a lot more manageable for someone who didn't like it because of the science. I would say it is a little long, and it didn't necessarily need to do with all that, but I think it's a story definitely worth reading, and the twists that it brings are really enjoyable to get to.
And I feel like, don't get us wrong here, and I'll speak for everyone. Obviously, Magic liked it, so I'm not going to speak for you, but I'll speak for Keith here. I'm very impressed with the science aspect that Andy Weir does in all of his books. You know, like it's very well researched. You know, he tries to put it in reality as opposed to just like with the Star Wars stuff we're saying, where it's like, I don't know any scientists, fuck having scientists on the set. Like, let's just roll it out there. I hope that whoever does this movie comes at it with like a Christopher Nolan Interstellar aspect where they try to make it true to the science. You know, and I think because Andy Weir probably has some rights as some producer credits, so I'm sure they will. But I'll definitely watch the movie, probably when it comes out. I'm not going to go see it in theaters. But either way, Magic, thanks for joining us. This was a blast. I really enjoy chatting with you about these books. And
yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Told us about this book, so appreciate you for that. And if you have one in the future, you're welcome anytime on the Buddy Book Club. Keith, as always,
Magic brought the heat like Astrophage. I'll be all week,
you'll
boys.
see your way out, indeed. Keith, as always, it's a great time. And until next time, do we have a book? Oh, we're doing Percy Jackson, right?
Percy Jackson, yeah.
Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. All right, yeah, we're taking it back to kids' times. Let's go. So, to everyone else, bye now.
You sleep, I watch.